Thank you. All right, it is 6:30. Good evening, Arnold.
Good evening.
And today is July 21st, 2026, and I'll call to order this meeting of the Manchester Conservation Commission held under the rules of the State Wetlands Protection Act and our local general wetlands bylaw. We're here with two missions. One is to protect wetlands, and the second is to serve our neighbors, many of whom appear to be coming in the gates. Welcome to the Conservation Commission. This meeting is entirely virtual in accordance with ongoing rules and regulations from the state. And that means a number of things. One is that all of our votes will be conducted by roll call. Another is that when it is time for public participation, and I will let you know when that is, you can participate by raising your hand physically or using the tools in your Zoom toolkit to raise a digital hand. When I call on you, please give us your name and address or affiliation if you're a professional, and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes unless we have arranged in advance for longer. Let's see, what else? Oh yes, we have a chat function, as you probably know, but I'd ask you to limit that to technical questions because it does not become part of the record. So
There's on mute.
Sorry, whoever is speaking, please mute yourself. Comments you put in chat do not become part of our permanent record. So limit your comments to technical IT help and such. I think that might be it. Am I forgetting anything important, Henry, besides the roll call?
We did recording, and you have the option
yes.
for not appearing, but the meeting's recorded. I think that's the last thing.
I think it is. So let's call the roll of commission members and then staff and get on our way. I'm Steve Gang, co-chair. Dr. Henry Ottinger, my co-chair. Are you here?
Here.
Good, thank you. Mr. Jim Hoffman.
Here.
Dr. Gordon Turner.
Here.
Mr. Arnold Oyola.
Here.
And Mr. David Lumsden.
Here.
And I have there she is. And there's
Marty is here.
Sorry about that.
No rush. Your
clicked on the wrong link.
Your timing is impeccable. Also, we have our able conservation administrator, Bethany Barstow, our town director of land management, Mark Resnick, and our town council, George Pucci, in attendance, and probably some other celebrities that you can identify yourself later on in the meeting. That's it for preparation. We will plunge in by opening our hearing, convening, and taking up notices of intent first. The first one of which is a continuation for 19 Proctor Street, Mass DEP 39-950. The applicant is David Taliaferro, and the project is to install a seasonal ramp and float at a single-family home. Well, since we talked about this last meeting, I know there have been some changes, and I'll invite Evan or whoever's here tonight on behalf of there you are, to summarize the changes for us, please.
Evan Gavendran, Duros Environmental, here representing the Talifieros for their proposed ramp and float. You are correct. Since the last meeting, we did have some plan changes, and it was to address the concern that the float would sink into the mud flat during low tide. So we were able to talk with the Ramsey Marine, who has helped us with the design of this, and they have recommended that we put skids on the bottom of the standoff. So it'll remain the 32 inches above the mud flat at low tide, but the skids will disperse the weight across the float, or excuse me, across the mud flat so that the float doesn't sink into the mud at low tide. So that was the plan change. Yep, sorry. We updated the detail on the plan. We have a new revision date. And I believe that was the only plan change. We did talk with Paul Orlando, the building inspector, Mark Resnick, and Bion all about the special permit comment. And we finally have confirmation that only projects requiring a Chapter 91 license need to apply for a special permit. And since this is just a seasonal ramp and float,
Sorry, I accidentally muted you, Evan.
that's all right. Just to recap, we can be under an annual permit from the Harbor Master, Section 10A, and it doesn't require a Chapter 91 license or a special permit. I believe that was everything.
Thank you, Evan.
Sure.
Questions or comments from the commission?
I saw in the revision a request not to do any mitigation, and yet, the impact to the resource is greater now that you've added 20 square feet of skids to what touches bottom. So, I mean, I don't know. How strong that position is, but the way I thought we had left it at the last meeting was that it was not just the granite step, but what touched the bottom of the floor, which now would be 65 to 75 feet. I don't know if there's going to be a boat there or not of suggested mitigation on some portion of the property. So
Sounds right to me as well. Evan, was there a reason not to do any mitigation? Is there some constraint on this property?
There isn't a constraint. I was under the impression that the mitigation would have been required for the 8 square feet. I didn't know that the commission wanted to mitigate for the tidal flat impacts also. So I did see
part of that is because when it was presented, the raft wasn't ever going to touch bottom. And we weren't recommending a change, but we were just saying, looks like it's going to sink into the mud. So, you guys have come back with a different proposal. We're not engineers. So it increases the impact on the resource more than what was originally presented.
And this isn't really discretionary for us. We're obliged by our local bylaw to require, I think it's a 2-to-1 ratio of mitigation when your work is in the resource and 1.5 when it's in the immediate buffer zone, the no disturb zone. So I haven't run that calculation, but that's becoming it's not a de minimis amount of mitigation. It's a significant amount.
okay.
It is. So Evan, when you do that calculation, please include the float itself, the gangway square footage, as well as the granite pad.
Okay, so it's not just the 26 square feet that's touching the mud flat and the 8 square feet that's on.
No, because it includes the sunlight you're excluding from land under ocean, which we have authority for.
From the float.
Float, gangway, and the granite pad.
Okay.
It's assuming that none of these things are going to be translucent.
The gangway is through flow decking, but the float is not going to be translucent. and neither is the granite block.
Okay, Henry, what's your take on that?
I mean, I have to see the material. I thought the flow through was a drainage that allows water through. Are they in fact translucent, Evan?
Yeah, it allows adequate sunlight. We use it for boardwalks through BVW a lot too. So this shouldn't impact any vegetation beneath the gangway.
Okay. I mean, that'd be
An
fine to
interesting
exclude
question.
that.
We permitted your work several years ago on Masconomo Street using that, and the vegetation underneath has thrived, kind of sheltered and warmed, I guess, by the boardwalk you built, and light has gone through. I don't think we've ever addressed the question for a gangway or a ramp, but I understand the argument.
Yeah, one other thing I just wanted to raise is, and I understand from your comments and from talking to Bethany that there's no issue apparently with how close the raft is to the lot line if it was extended out over the water, but it does just look to me like it's quite crowded with an existing raft and one of the neighbors, and you're right up next to their lot line. And if the other neighbor were to seek to put a raft out, you know, given that this is an annual approval, you know, you might be forced to move this. So I just look at where, you know, this is being positioned, and it's not our business to opine on that, but you know, it would kind of disturb things more to have to do this again. So it just seemed to me to be a little odd the way the raft was being positioned off the shore.
I can speak a little to that. So this is sort of an odd ebb and flow of the tides in this area. And the area and or why we chose to angle it is because that section actually receives, it's the deepest part and it receives the most tide, I guess. So their use of the float would be maximized in that location. That's the only reason why it seems a little odd.
It does make me wonder why not use a shorter ramp and go to the more proximal shore line on their property. Is there a reason?
Well, yes, because we have to span the salt marsh. So that's why the ramp is that length.
But if it was anchored closer to the property line, I can't tell from the plan what this is. It looks like it might be a retaining wall. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a little bit south of where you're currently planning to anchor the gangway.
Yeah, sort of towards where the kayak rack is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So is that a permanent structure that's on the plan here?
It's not a permanent structure, no. It's just
No,
like
I mean what appears to be a wall.
oh yes, that's a wall. That's a permanent structure.
And what does it consist of?
It's either stone or your
Now I'm curious whether it would bear the weight of a ramp, which would significantly lessen any impact on the resource, because it could be half the length and get you to the same location.
you're suggesting attaching the ramp to that wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
But there's
talking
no
of,
pedestrian access above that wall. That's the issue. I'll see if I can try to find photos. We would have to remove vegetation in order to gain access above there.
okay, is it wooded? I can't remember the site from years ago. when the pizza oven and the other things were put in.
I'm trying to find some pictures for you. One second. Let's see here. So there's like there's a large hardscaped area. And then there's like a sloped, oh, here we go. I just sent a request to be able to share screen. There we go.
Should be able to now.
Thank you. Okay. Can you see this photo? So
Yes.
this stone wall is the permanent structure. And then so you see that there's shrubs, there's a couple trees. This is all densely vegetated. The slope is all densely, this was clearly taken in the winter, but it's densely vegetated with a bunch of stuff. So with the fence, so we would have to either make stairs from the patio above down to there, the wall. It just seemed like less impact on the lawn.
Well, while I puzzle over this, anyone else on the commission have a question or a take on this aspect?
Yes, Steve.
Go ahead, David.
So, I like that idea of starting the ramp on the lawn. I think will be less of a problem than building or attaching to a permanent structure on the shore. Also, with the 60-foot ramp, that's a long swing. But I was very, very encouraged that you're using helical anchors on either side of the float, so that once you attach those skids underneath, this float is not going to have much movement left or right due to the anchoring of those helical anchors. So I think that's a very good plan. I like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question, Evan? Can you use a pointer and show us where the ramp will go on here exactly? I'm looking at the chart and it looks like it's, so if you just show us where the cement pad is to go, it's right there. And then the ramp goes out to the right. Okay.
See this
And-
like deeper glacier channel?
Uh-huh.
That's the deepest part. So that's intended to be where the float would be. Approximately.
So at low tide, it's actually going to be on the, this is at low tide and there's no water there at all.
Correct.
Right? So it'll be sitting at low tide and it will float at high tide. But is this intended for boats or is this a swimming ramp? Is this going to have boats attached to it?
It'll have like a dinghy attached to it.
Yeah, because I mean it's pretty shallow water to have anything more than a dinghy. Okay.
And then kayaks,
Mhm.
paddleboards.
Yeah.
Well,
A
the
teacher-
longer the ramp,
Go
the
ahead.
heavier it is, and they get very heavy. So,
Yeah, we had the Ramsey Marine out to the site and he was fairly confident that this design was the best for the site.
Mhm. Henry, go ahead.
Yes, Dave, I just wanted to mention, there's, and Evan, you can correct me on this, but there's still a letter required from the harbor master, is that right?
The harbor master will issue an annual permit.
The annual permit, okay. And Steve, in some cases, or certainly in the past, we've preferred that
Mhm.
we are the last board or commission to see the application after everything's been settled. So I don't know if we want to wait on the sort of the annual license from Bion. That's a suggestion.
That comes after. And we've sent this to Bion, the notice of intent, and we've talked to him on the phone about it. So it's not really like a permit at before construction. It's kind of like more.
Yep. I was just going to say that I occasionally kayak around when there's water in this little inlet. And I don't think there's a substantial difference in depth. That what you pointed to as water shining there is not, I mean, it technically a channel, but I think it's a matter of inches deeper than the rest of the mudflat. Do you have any direct information about that? Because where there's been dredging, we are receptive to putting a longer ramp so that the float can maintain buoyancy throughout the tide cycle. Here, that's not an issue, but as Marty says, you do have a whopping big aluminum ramp, which is going to put some weight onto the float. And if there were a way to have a 30-foot ramp instead of a 60, that would be a lot less impactful to the resource.
Yeah, and you have to pull them in, and they are really heavy.
It's
And
not hauled in and stored up on the shore. It'll be hauled away, seasonally and by the water.
Yeah, we have a little collection of them in the inner harbor every winter.
Sure.
Evan,
And-
you're go ahead. Sorry, Bethany.
That's okay. And the information about the depth and it's really the homeowners, look at this every day,
Mhm.
right? This is what they've experienced, and this is where they've and it's the best.
Yeah, local knowledge counts. Arnold, your hand has been up. What, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's my comment is somewhat overlapping. When we left last time and we talked about the concerns about the sinking in the mud, I was actually glad to see the skips, right, which had a lot of surface area. It's about 13 times, right, the surface area. And then the key, it does become up at the end of calculation, right? Do we think that increased area, which does increase impact, does prevent the whole ramp, which will be a 10 by 20, 200, from coming down and fully resting, right? And so that's a consideration, I think, just ensuring that if we think that we have increased the surface area by that much, when we consider the cantilever arm of that ramp onto that surface, is that going to be enough from keeping it from sinking as well? So it should go into your, I would assume that it goes into your calculation and assumption. So I'm not surprised that there's a tendency here to be concerned about the length of the ramp, because that's going to play into it. But it was great to see the improvement and the added surface area.
Mhm.
I think that's going to help definitely.
Agreed.
And when did the notices go out to the adjacent owners, abutters?
When we filed the notice of intent.
Yeah, that's part of the filing, like
Okay.
requirements.
I may realize I haven't focused on this before, but it now strikes me that this is a large float relative to others we've permitted for that are going to land on the tidal flat during the low tide. Is there a reason, if it's a dinghy float, for it to be 20 feet long?
I don't
It
think
would
this
typically be for a more substantial
I don't think
motorboat.
that's true. I think we followed the harbor master's policies on floats, and it's pretty consistent with the neighboring floats in size.
I'm not sure that's right. You're talking about the floats from other Proctor Street houses.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
not
I
to
think-
my knowledge, a harbor master guideline on size of floats.
So
Or
what's the
length
purpose of
of
a 20-foot by 10-foot float? It's over-engineered for a dinghy, for sure.
I would also ask, Evan, if you guys have gotten an estimate on the weight of the ramp. We have a 30-foot one and it weighs about 500 pounds. The 60-foot one will weigh 1,000 pounds. And getting that up onto the ground, when we can do it with a boat underneath it, get it up to a dock. You won't be able to bring a boat underneath this. It's going to end up being dragged. And I just think that should be that part of it, the getting it in and out, something that weighs that much. Get an estimate. I'm guessing that you may be looking at 1,000 pounds ramp. It's just hard to manage. Just get somebody to ascertain that.
So that begs the question, if lifted out, it's not going to go on their own lawn, is my understanding. They've got to get some boat in there at high tide, and what's the draft of that kind of vessel used to remove docks? Because that's usually in an area that has maybe more clearance.
Yeah. Do you know if they've already commissioned somebody like Tom Baker to manage
Tommy
the
Baker.
removal
He's the
and
one to talk to.
replacement of,
Oh,
right?
they're still on that.
Well, I'm certainly not yet comfortable. How is this sitting with the rest of the commission?
Steve, would you see here, Arnold? Yep.
Arnold has his hand up.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Arnold.
I had lowered it and raised it again. I'm sorry. In the image we saw earlier, we could see in the distance, we could see that the stairs and the deck, right? And you pointed out the general channel. There seemed to be a what appeared to be a rock structure, if you will. Although it seemed to be almost perpendicular to the viewer. Is that the portion of the rock wall? Is that within the property at hand, or is that neighbor? Yeah,
I believe that's Colby West's historic pier, which apparently has been there a long time.
is that shown in the plan, or is that not shown in the plan? I'm just trying to.
No, because it's not the immediate abutting neighbor. There's a
Got it.
intervening lot
It's beyond.
with
Thank you.
frontage.
That just helps you with the scale a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I just
Well, I
don't,
guess I'm asking, is the rest of the commission ready to close this? Or would you like to get some more information about the necessity for such a large float with such
Yeah,
a lengthy ramp?
Steve, I'd like to hear from Aaron. Aaron, do you think that the applicant would consider reducing the size for all the reasons mentioned tonight? We'd be interested in that.
yeah, I don't think it's possible to reduce the length of the gangway
No,
because
I
of
mean the actual float size, which you've mentioned is going to have like unpowered boats, kayaks, dinghy, and we're not comfortable with a 20-foot dimension on that. Is there a 20-foot dimension on that?
Sure, I'm sure that they would reduce it to a smaller size. But what is a comfortable size for the commission, I guess?
Well, there's an issue there that maybe it has to be that big to carry the weight of the gangplank. The smaller float wouldn't support it.
Putting wise, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not engineers, Evan.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good point.
Me neither, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would say Tommy Baker is a resource worth consulting on this because he's the one who's going to end up bringing it in and taking it out and dealing with those issues. I don't know that he's an engineer, but he sure knows his stuff. So
Excuse me? They
Tommy-
can't like recommend.
Okay.
No, but
Beg your
what we
pardon?
can do is ask for, I think Martha brings up a great point. This assumption that this is going to be stored off-site. It's
Mhm.
not very deep. We don't want it to drag through the mud. we have to understand that mechanism of removing it at the end of the season
Yeah.
But
to get comfortable.
could you not just condition the order to say that it can't be dragged through?
Well,
This-
conditions,
The-
excuse me, but I think conditions are for a situation where we become convinced that there's little or no risk if it's properly done, which I don't think is the case yet. We're not convinced that this can be, routinely moved in and out without dragging it somewhat. So we could put in a condition, but if you can't meet it, that doesn't make any sense.
Maybe the harbor master is aware of other situations similar to this that he can point to and we can get comfortable, but that to me is the toughest point.
They've chosen the deepest area. That may be because it is possible to get a boat in underneath it to help with the removal of the gangway. It may not be feasible at other places on here, but I'm just, we may have beaten this as far as we can. I don't know what else to suggest.
Okay, well, it would help me greatly to have some information about whether a smaller float is feasible in terms of the project and in terms of bearing the weight of the gangway, and also to look again at alternatives of repositioning it so that it's not a 60-foot distance.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the meantime, we will go back to our database and see whether we have a comparable sized float with a comparable length of gangway. I don't believe we do. I mean, a float that grounds in the tide cycle.
Steve,
Yes.
this is Bethany. Are you guys also looking, just to help Evan out, are you guys also looking for mitigation plantings as well? Or
Yes.
Yes, I think we
Well,
are. So that
mitigation.
put that on the list of to-dos.
But I think, Steve, you mentioned that there's a correlation between the surface area, which now increases to 20 feet on the muddy flat, right, to remediation area. Is that something that?
Yes,
We
it's
can-
in our bylaw. There's required ratios unless there's an argument for a waiver,
Right.
which I'm not hearing here. All right, under these conditions, I think we need to continue. Does anybody feel a need to inspect the site for further information? Bethany, you've been out there, right?
yes.
Yes. Good. Okay. So if it's not too much to ask to get some details on the reason for such a large float and such a long, I'm sorry, the options of a smaller float and perhaps a shorter gangway, along with some proposal for the mitigation plantings. At our next meeting, we could continue this to
August
August
11th.
11th.
11.
Okay,
Can we hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Great. All those in favor? Gordon?
Aye.
Arnold?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
I
Marty?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
And the chair's an aye as well. We'll make that unanimous. So, thank you, Evan.
thank you. I'll see you on the 11th.
Okay. That brings us to our second notice of intent, also continued from past meeting, which is 5 Kings Way.
It has a DEP number now.
Good. What is it?
It's 033991, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, 0951.
0951.
Yep.
Applicant is Ryan McShira. or extending electrical and communication utilities from an existing transformer through the buffer to BVW and up to a new house. We had a successful site visit there on Saturday. Very informative, very useful. It's a somewhat complicated site with the culvert and some patches of smaller and medium-sized BVW. And for the members who didn't come to the site visit, there was one new issue raised, which is a desire of the neighbors to place some boulders along one side of the road that doesn't presently have boulders. And I was of the opinion that that is probably a separate permit application of some kind, RDA or NOI, because it's different owners and it's not connected in any particular way to the proposal to extend utilities. But anything else from the site visit worth noting? Those who attended?
Dave, why do boulders, why would they require an NOI, just standalone, just for my own benefit?
Well, I think they're right on the edge of a pretty functional wetland.
Okay.
So to put them in is going to require some moving of material and erosion control. It may be an RDA. It may not be that significant amount of impact. I don't know. They need to tell us what they have in mind and let Bethany advise them.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if I could provide a little bit more context for the commission and everyone involved. Hi, Ryan McSherry here. I'm part of the applicant group, Red Barn Architecture, and it's this side of the driveway. So our driveway up to 5 Kings goes up here. This is the shared common drive. So as you can see on what would be the eastern side of the common shared driveway. The way that it was finished previously was with these nice large boulders, and there's a grassy area in between the boulders and the paved area. And the neighbors, who in this image are located behind us, were hopeful that the board would consider a similar treatment for this side of the road so that the aesthetics would match on each side of the shared common driveway. And so during the site visit, it was brought up that should this be a separate application? Should it be included now? So I'm open to your thoughts, interpretations, and discussions here.
Anybody? Arnold.
So yeah, I was on site. Two things I guess came to mind. Obviously, there were some stages that have been approved earlier, and there's some areas that are meant for the collection of water, right? And there's a driveway that goes through it over a culvert per se, right? So there's a process or a system in place already for how to manage some of the collection of water, and I think that gets complemented with the planned trenches. I believe that were just presented or discussed at the site visit to collect water, and I think the intent is to again continue delivering area to the water to the collection area. And it goes under the culvert, under the driveway, into the protected areas. Right? Is that right, Ryan?
That is correct. Yep. We're trying to slow down water coming down off of the driveway and divert it into grassy areas on either side, and then into our retention areas and along the same path as it already runs.
So there's a utility part of the project will be taking utilities, right? Also over through the driveway. So what consideration has been made with respect to the disturbance of that existing culvert and that existing mitigation system with respect to the utilities and ensuring that there's no disturbance? And then part B of the question is when you're trenching, right? And it's wide open if we do have a flash summer rain or depending when the project is done, but if there's some rain, how do we prevent all that overrun from making it? Are the silt protection areas enough to take all that potential dust and sediment and preventing it from really overrunning into the protected areas.
Got it. So to the first question about the disturbance of any of the existing culverts, I believe that our trench work will be happening above those culverts. Our inverts on those are roughly at about elevation 31. Our top of paved area is between elevation 35 and 36. And so we'll be excavating approximately 3 feet down. And so I believe we're going to go over and not these culverts. That's the same for the one on our property here. And then to the other question, we are happy to work with you all to make sure that we are properly protected as much as possible with erosion controls. But we also do have a large parcel here that we're working with in Five Kings, and we are happy to move the material every day, bring it up onto site, bring it out of the wetland, out of the buffer zone, onto our own property, do the work, get it covered up so that we're avoiding as much erosion runoff as practical during the project.
Good. That's a good idea. Ryan, I think during our site visit, you also mentioned wanting to get the wetland delineated again, or at least some portion of it. Did I hear that right?
Yep, we are happy to have our wetland scientist head out there and delineate the wetland. I'm also interested in getting my surveyor back out so I can get that surveyed, as well as the 100-foot buffer. So our construction teams just understand where that edge of boundary is, so that we're not going into it at all during the construction process.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Because as we noted, the flags are long gone from the original delineations. Yeah. Other questions or comments from the commission? Okay, any from the public on Five Kings Way? I'm hearing none.
Marty has her hand up, Steve.
Marty, go ahead.
If we can, I guess the question about the extension on the existing driveway and having the stones put in for the aesthetics purpose. At this point, is that something that we've decided that Bethany can resolve, and we don't? I mean, it seems to be that ought not need another permit if it's something we've already looked at and look like a reasonable thing to do. I just wondered if we could consolidate for them.
The reason it troubles me, Marty, is because it's separate properties with separate owners. And
It's true.
there isn't any functional connection between the aesthetic improvement of the main driveway and this electrical and communications utility work on the new driveway. So it feels like it deserves its own little spotlight, and it could. It's up to Bethany to recommend whether it is simply a letter permit or an RDA. I can't imagine. Well, depending on what they propose, it's hard to imagine it being an NOI, as you say. But it's not something we would just say. Yeah.
It is someone else's. It's someone else's property, Ryan. I know they've told you they want you to do that. Have they told you that on paper and that you're welcome to do that? I mean, that's kind of a question.
No, yes. So as part of our effort to get prepared for this process, we had a meeting with the neighbors and went over what we were going to be doing insofar as the work itself, as well as just how this process we anticipated it going. And this request was something that they made of us as we got going with this project. So given the work that we're doing and the disturbance we were doing on their property, we were happy to oblige and have that conversation with them. But I would also be happy to navigate that portion of work separate if the commission and Bethany think that's the best approach. It's, I'm not really concerned with the process so much as just advocating for our neighbors and ourselves on this project.
Yeah, since it's a different applicant, Ryan, this is me, Bethany.
Yep.
Since it's a different applicant, just have him message me about like the size of the boulders and exactly where, and we can go from there. Yes, I just don't think it should be combined since they're two separate property owners, like Steve said.
Yep, understood.
Okay, well, it sounds like we've made some progress here, and next step will be for you to get those delineations and define where the buffer zone is. And then hopefully we can close the hearing and issue an order. We have a DEP number. That's good. Do we have any comments back from DEP?
I know Ryan sent revised materials, I think today. You mailed it to them today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we're working on cleaning up our application to match the scope of work that we are doing out here. So I just have to get that back into DEP for record set. But I anticipate getting that in the mail tomorrow. And other than that, I think they've got what they need to make final comments as well.
Good.
Right, I'll move we continue 5 Kingsway to August 11th.
Second,
Thank you, David. All those in favor? Marty,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
David,
aye.
Jim,
I,
Henry,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you all so much for your time. I will see you on the 11th.
Great. Our third, and I think the event that's brought most of our attendees here is Zero School Street. No DEP number as yet.
Mhm.
Applicant is Jeff Engler. Property owners are Andrew Brown. Is there a DEP number, Bethany?
No. Not yet.
Okay, this is the 40B project to construct 136 apartment units on the northern portion of the property. When we opened this hearing last meeting, we posed a number of questions, and maybe we can start, whoever's speaking on behalf of SLV and Zero School Street, start with a report back on answers to those questions.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Scott Goddard, Goddard Consulting, representing the applicants in this case. And thank you for this continued hearing this evening. So what I had anticipated for this evening, and maybe that might be a slightly different agenda from what you have, and we could sort of maybe come to an alignment on that, is that there would be an opportunity here to review the peer review proposals that were obtained and observe the dialogue of the commission to select and execute to advance the peer review process. I understand there were some other questions that came up at the last meeting, but the applicant and their team, including myself, the civil engineer on the team as well, would like to gather all of the issues and questions and requests for additional information together so that we can piecemeal this as little as possible and give more comprehensive answers to questions rather. So if it pleases the commission, I guess my request would be that we look toward reviewing and advancing peer review rather than diving into the open-ended questions that remain from the last meeting.
Well, we certainly have the. I respect your point that you shouldn't be in a position of answering open-ended questions. We had some rather specific information needs at the last meeting, and I'm hopeful that those will not be too difficult for your team to furnish before the next meeting. And if you have any doubt about that, you can review the minutes or the transcript, and we can also probably help you with a reminder of those. But I hear you saying we should go directly to peer review because that's all you folks are prepared to talk about tonight?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So Bethany and Henry, you've been closer to this process than I have, and thank you for that.
Mhm.
Can you give us a synopsis of the proposals, the two proposals we have in front of us, and what you see as the differences, pros and cons?
So, hi everyone, this is Bethany. Um, and I've reached out to many consultants, more than 10, and I've received 4 responses from from the group of consultants I've asked. Oxbow declined respectfully, Niche declined respectfully, but we received 2 peer review proposals from Weston Sampson and, sorry if I'm mispronouncing this consultant, Teague and Bond.
Tie and bond. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when I asked these consultants for peer review, I emphasize about the stormwater drainage report with emphasis on the impacts to the nearby vernal pools. So I can if anyone wants to add anything, I can screen share. I can screen share if that helps with for one of them. I will just screen share.
Well, Bethany, I don't think we need to read through the proposals, but
Okay.
we do need to summarize for the applicant, what are the major differences in scope, duration, price, etc.
Okay. So let me just pull them up for on my screen then. I have them. Sorry.
And have we provided these to Scott or
Yes, I
Colby
have.
or others? Okay, good.
Yes,
I have.
thank you for that.
So there's a difference in the scope fee prices. Tig and Bond is a lump sum of $10,000, while Weston and Sampson is $15,800. And I feel like the main difference is that Weston and Sampson has they would check the wetland delineation more thoroughly than Ty and Bond. And I feel like Tag and Bond is more emphasizing on the stormwater drainage.
Mhm. Henry, does that do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the scope is close enough that
Yeah.
I'd call them equivalent. I have seen Ty and Bond's work before. Scott, they've done work for the town of Manchester in it seems thorough, and frankly, it's less money. So I mean that's my take on it.
Yeah, so we're coming out recommending Ty and Bond as the more cost-effective provider with sufficient scope. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and the applicant has no objections to that. Ty and Bond is a very capable firm, for sure. So, and the scope seems appropriate.
Good. And they put in what sounds like maybe a optimistic duration of 3 weeks. Although, as they say, that depends on getting answers to, I'm sure they'll have questions for all of us at various points. But in any case, it's not going to be months and months, which is good news.
Yes.
Any comments or questions from the rest of the commission? Jim?
Yeah, Steve, I've got a few comments about the scope. I guess I was disappointed in what I read. I have 4 areas that I was hoping that they would help me understand, and I'm not an engineer and I'm not, I don't have the background, but the first is, we create this great drainage model, but is there going to be any vernal pool left by the time you're done with construction? In other words, are the resources preserved during the construction process? And I would want help by this peer review group to tell me that that's the case. And I always feel like in engineering, there's a range of things you can do, and someone picks a middle range, but I'd like to understand what the range is, how much redundancy is built into the plan. If more money were done, or is this a Cadillac plan? I just have no sense. So that's one element. Another element is what I addressed, one of the open questions, which is how the heck do you remove salt and prevent contamination of the vernal pools? And I want them to tell me that that is feasible, that the applicant has a methodology and a plan that's going to work, because this is not a situation where we can just plant salt tolerant plants. This is a different ecosystem, and I've yet to understand how that it won't be destroyed by a bunch of road salt going on this driveway. The third is lighting, and I understand that this whole process of 40B means that the town's rules might not apply if they're lesser than the state, but the state has basically said we defer to communities on lighting. We don't have a policy. They're working on a policy. There's something in legislation now on dark skies, but it's not like Manchester has a different policy than the state. It's just that the state didn't deal with it. But if you look at the Wetlands Act, 310 CMR 10.58, it says vernal pools are an essential breeding site requiring undisturbed woodlands as habitat. I'm paraphrasing, many species travel a quarter mile or more for pools. So other than, clean water, to me, light is a pretty big factor here, because you're creating a lighting element between road lamps and between uplighting potentially, or sign lights that create a very difficult environment for the salamanders and other creatures in these ponds that require darkness. And we all know how difficult it is to sleep when we don't have our shades drawn, and it's pretty difficult for these breeding grounds to survive if you've got a lot of light. And I want the peer review group to analyze it, because not only is it all those lamps, you've got some 500-600 windows that will be emitting light as well. So, for me, not enough things were covered. The things that I think are critical for the survival of the vernal pools that we're concerned with. And so I would want a much broader scope to help me understand how this proposal will work effectively.
Well said. Reactions from the commission? Are these things that you'd want to see an expert peer review cover? Just to recap, one would be the impact of the construction activities prior to the completion of the full-fledged storm drainage system. The impact of road salt or road chemicals generally, if salt's avoided, and the impact of lighting,
Yes.
all on the vernal pools and their habitat function.
Yeah, I would say, Steve, those are reasonable requests, and we could group them within the specifications of the vernal pool, the effects on vernal pool. The stormwater management is still a key portion of the review, and we have we have a limited time to do that. So I think it just has to be balanced. The number of topics probably need to be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask a question regarding the road salt? There are places like around Wenham Lake where salt cannot be used. and they are restricted to using sand on the roads. Is that a restriction that would be feasible for this, for the snow management? It's, you got risks from anything you're dumping into the area, but salt strikes me as being particularly risky.
Toward whom are you asking? Would this be a question for the peer reviewers, or is it a question for the applicant, or
Well,
both?
Yeah, I'm asking the commission, which I'm a part of, because I haven't asked this kind of question before, but I thought that was something to be considered, and the peer reviewers to look at that. The concern that I have, that I think the peer reviewers need to look at, is in the process of building the road and building the retaining walls is going to be happening sort of at the same time. And I think the impact of the retaining walls on the water drainage, and they're going to be supporting an awful lot of structure, and water that would normally drain either is going to go over the retaining wall or it's going to go behind it, I just or channeled into it, but I think the retaining walls themselves present some wastewater management or water runoff management issues. And they're happening sort of simultaneously as the road is being built, as well as in the long term.
Mhm.
They're going to have to be enormously thick to handle the structure there.
Has the design of those walls been peer reviewed in prior proceedings? ZBA or Housing Appeals Committee?
Steve, could you repeat that?
I'm wondering if there's already been an expert peer review of the retaining walls, either
This
for the
is,
ZBA hearing or for the HAC process.
I think you're asking the proponents team, right? This is Carlton with Allen and Major Associates, representing the client. I'm the civil engineer. There's been no peer review of the retaining walls at this point. Generally, the retaining walls are designed post-entitlement, and they would be stamped by a structural or wall designing engineer and reviewed by the building department. And he can probably ask for peer review if he needed one.
Their impact on the water management impacts what, that covers our purview, and they so I think those are intertwined.
Yeah, granted, this is a significantly larger project, but without exception, we have seen design of retaining walls in every prior case as part of our review process. And in some cases where they've been particularly large, we've raised questions about their longevity and ability to handle back pressure and other things. So some engineering has been done. You're saying we would not have that option in this case?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a peer review of a retaining wall design in a notice of intent proceeding before. It's generally done after the approval while the building is being designed and prior to the building permit.
Yeah, Carlton, I wasn't talking specifically about peer review. I was just talking about design. So will we be able to see construction design plans for the walls?
No, I can give you the geometry, the height, the location, the bottom and top of walls, but that design would not be provided for this proceeding.
So normal runoff from, we're supposed to be protecting the vernal pools. We're supposed to get exactly as much water as they used to get before this whole thing started on all sides. And the retaining walls are going to have a lot of impact on that. So
I think the peer reviewer, with the information we provide, should be able to provide you feedback on the water coming around the walls. It's not unusual for them to comment on that.
Okay, granted. Anyone else on the commission?
Arnold has his hand up, Steve.
Go ahead, Arnold.
Yeah, so similar to, I guess, requests that were made, just in requesting for the peer review to ensure that we have a look at the cut and fill, any cut and fill calculations, reports, and as well as the logistics related to removal of all that material, including short-term erosion risks that may come along with that. There may be a intent to reuse some of the material locally, and there may be swell factors. So the peer review should definitely dig into those areas of ensuring that we understand volumetric, cut and fill, and logistics. And also, and I think this overlaps with what you were mentioning, Marty, that what is the impact of the recharge of the area for water when we're digging so deeply into the whatever materials underneath, bedrock, etc. What is the impact to the natural recharge of water that eventually will flow into the protected areas as well as a function of the removal and the cut and fill effects. So I would definitely want to see the peer review effort to explore those areas.
Harry, my understanding is that the peer review proposals don't specify the construction process and its impact on the potential impact on the vernal pools. And that may be, is that correct?
Who are you asking, Steve?
Henry.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't either.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Scott. Could I add one comment to this conversation?
Sure.
I think it would be helpful too, and I appreciate the dialogue happening with the members of the commission, but rather than a list of blanket questions that you'd like peer review comment on, which could be appropriate, I think as part of that, it would be helpful to ask the peer reviewers to opine if the questions being asked are within the purview of this review and jurisdiction of the commission, just so that we're not chasing things that are outside of the right scope for this type of an application.
A very fair point.
I'm not sure I agree with that because I don't know that they have the background or knowledge to interpret, whether some of these, laws apply or whether they're judgmental. I don't think that the peer review should take over the role of the MVTS Conservation Commission in deciding those factors.
Well, sorry, I wasn't suggesting that they would interpret how to exercise judgment on behalf of the commission. I would just suggest that they could opine as to what's in the jurisdiction of the review of the commission and what isn't. I think that's fair. And that's what you might, one of the things in which their expertise could help the commission focus in on.
Well, it's nice to say we don't have any jurisdiction. I understand that, but I disagree with that point. We're looking for information on the technical aspects of the engineering, how the water flows and the effect on the vernal pools. And what you're kind of suggesting is that, we have no opinion on some of the relevant things. If you're going to try and
I'm sorry, I'm not,
yeah.
I have to interrupt there. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying
Okay.
there is a line somewhere in the universe. There's a line between why we're here with this application and why we wouldn't be here before an application. So it's reasonable to just make sure we're talking the same language as to what's in and what's out. And the things we're talking about, have reasonable merit. We just want to make sure, I think we want to make sure that we're talking about the things that are subject to jurisdiction versus aren't. And I'm not suggesting that everything that's being mentioned is not subject to jurisdiction. I'm not suggesting that at all.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I
Time
get
out.
it. I appreciate both your points, but we need to move on.
Steve, I'm just going to recommend, I mean, we can certainly add to the request of the peer reviewer
Yes.
primary focus on jurisdictional matters, right?
Correct.
So, Scott, does that
Yes,
seem
thank you.
reasonable?
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, let's go. David's got his hand up. Mr. Hill, we're in commissioner comment right now. We're not at public yet, but we'll get to you. I promise.
Will you be taking public comment on the peer review process, or are you going to vote first on that?
We're gonna take care of the peer review.
Because I had a
matters
comment
first.
specifically on peer review, if it's okay to make a comment.
If the chair requests public comment, we'll get to your comment. Right now, David, what's up?
Okay.
Let's hear from David. You're muted, David.
As a commissioner, there's 3 areas that I'd like both the peer review folks to look at and for us as a committee to focus on. Those are, what is the direct habitat destruction that may be a consequence of this project? What will be the alteration of the surrounding upland migratory zones? I think Marty made reference to that. And what are the changes that are going to take place in the vernal pool's natural hydrology? Those are 3 key factors that I think must be answered in order to protect the resources around this project.
Thank you, David. That's well said. And I'm relatively certain that both proposals will be addressing those aspects of the vernal pools. What I'm not certain about is whether, in addition to the stormwater drainage design, which applies to the completed project, whether they have in scope the protection of the vernal pools during what promises to be a relatively extensive construction period. And to Scott's excellent point, we have no jurisdiction over most of the construction site itself because it is not in wetland or buffer zone. However, it will have significant indirect effects as material is removed by truck or by other method, as well as what happens if storms occur during the construction process, which, given the magnitude of it, they probably will. What will be required to preserve and protect the vernal pools during that period? So that's one area where I definitely like to make sure that's in scope of the peer reviews. As Jim said earlier, the impact of construction activities. Any other comments from the commission? Then I will take 1 or 2 comments on the matter of peer review from the public, beginning with Attorney Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, my name is Dan Hill. I'm an attorney in Boston, and my firm represents the Manchester Essex Conservation Trust. I just wanted to make the commission aware that a tremendous amount of scientific analysis has been done on this project on the very wetland impact issues that have been raised tonight. Attorney Pucci is here as well, and he can attest. George and I worked for the better part of 2 or 3 years on the review of this project as it was pending at the Housing Appeals Committee. And in that process, the town had hired 3 experts, a hydrologist, a wetland scientist, and a civil engineer, actually another 2 civil engineers, to study the impacts of this project, very much within the scope of the Wetland Protection Act impacts, which is obviously what you're doing here. If I could just propose a couple scope issues with respect to peer review, because I think you could benefit from the work that's been done already. Probably the 2 biggest Wetland Protection Act scope interests that are affected by the project are the impacts to the vernal pool and Sawmill Brook, which David just very eloquently summarized, I think. And in our view, the best peer review expert on this would be a biologist, a wetland biologist who has expertise in evaluating water budgets for vernal pools, as well as biological impacts to the habitat of vernal pools and the cold water fishery. Sawmill Brook is a cold water fishery, and that there's arguably impacts to that resource area. So I think, I don't know, I haven't seen the proposals from Ty and Bond or Weston and Sampson, but in my experience, and again, George can attest, it's not so much hiring a firm, it's hiring the right people who have the expertise and experience dealing with these very narrow specific issues. So I would urge the commission to make sure that whoever is proposing to do the work at Ty and Bond be somebody who can actually evaluate those vernal pool and the cold water fishery impacts. And then the second issue is the stormwater system, and that's very much hydrology based. The science of hydrology, as you all know, is the study of water and how water moves. And there are major arguable impacts from this project on the groundwater hydrology and the surface water hydrology. And in our view, it's very important that the commission have a peer reviewer who has specific expertise in groundwater modeling, specifically three-dimensional modeling using programs like ModFlow that can then create predictive modeling as to how the project's going to impact vernal pools, the groundwater, the wetlands, and Sawmill Brook. So again, I don't know if Ty and Bond or Weston and Sampson has that in-house expertise, but that's what I would be looking for if I was the commissioner. And I do know that firms like GZA, I don't know if Bethany had reached out to them. GZA had recently done a peer review on a very similar type project in the town of Milton and did a very good job. The Milton Conservation Commission chairman could attest to that if you wanted to reach out to him. Stephen D'Ambrosio was the name of the engineer in that firm. So I just want to share that perspective that we do have a tremendous amount of work that's already been done. And those were the biggest issues in the environmental issues in the prior proceedings at the Housing Appeals Committee. And those are directly relevant to this proceeding.
Thank you. Bethany, is there any reason why the whichever peer reviewer we select, assume it's Ty and Bond, why they wouldn't be willing or able to take a look at the prior expert work?
No, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to. They're a very well-respected firm in the environmental area.
Right.
And speaking about GZA, I did reach out to them. They did not respond.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public specifically on the peer review selection? All right, then. Does this require a commission vote to formally recommend Ty and Bond, or to postpone till next meeting if we have sufficient open questions about scope? Marty.
To me, some of the things that Attorney Hill has just raised are not covered in, and I think we've come up with, and David Lumsden also raised, perhaps the scope of what we're looking for may need to be expanded a little bit to include the biologist and the hydrologist. I mean, Ty and Bond sounds good. 3 weeks. It may not be as thorough as what we need. So I just asked the question whether we need to expand the RFP, as it were, and perhaps try again to reach GZA.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
I agree. I think we should be going back to the parties and making sure we expand the scope, see how they respond to the expanded scope in terms of cost and timing. And then we can reevaluate.
All right. I'm amenable to that as well. I notice we have a hand up from the public belatedly.
No, I think
Steve
that's Mr. Hall. I think his hand is just still up, Steve.
Okay.
It's a different.
No, that's different.
It's a
No,
different
Steve Hall
so I
hasn't
think so.
spoken yet. Mr. Hall, is your comment directed toward peer review?
Yes.
And speak up and try to limit yourself to 2 minutes.
I have a comment to the natural resources area that are involved hydrology that Attorney Hill just spoke about. In addition to the water resources that he cited. I would also cite the forest products or the trees. Specifically concerned about Cathedral Pines. It was the first conservation project in Manchester. It was the first conservation project in Massachusetts. It was, except for Yosemite Park, the first conservation project in the United States. It's a resource that needs to be protected. I'd like to know from the peer review if there's any chance of survival of the Cathedral Pines forest area and all the other natural forest areas that surround this Shingle Place Hill. It's a very important, the water runs off and it, we all live or are blessed with a tree-covered community, and we take for granted that we have plenty of rain like we have tonight to keep the trees healthy. I'm really concerned about that water quality issue with regard to the forest. And also, there others spoke who are on the commission spoke about the light pollution issue, and I don't survive very well with bright lights around me, and I'm really afraid of all the little critters in the wilderness conservation area that are right there underneath the lights of this proposed project. Just as a reference, if you look at the construction recently at the Fuller School in Gloucester, that huge apartment and condo development that's comparable to what is being proposed by SOV. The light pollution there is severe. I mean, it's very, very bright, and nothing living would want to live in the parking lot or surrounding woodlands. I want to make sure that peer review says no problem. Thank you.
Did we lose the chair? Is he there? Some of us just experienced a power outage, so we might need to wait a minute for people's Wi-Fi systems to come back.
Yeah, just give him a second, please. Sorry for the wait. They might have to call like on their phone or something.
Correct. I think that Henry was affected as well. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think he's coming back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Good. Sorry about that. We had a power outage here.
The chair is back, everyone.
Let's just make sure we still have a quorum here. I see Jim, Arnold.
Yes, we do.
Who else is here besides me, Jim, and Arnold?
Jim, Arnold, Gordon.
I'm recused for this topic, though, so you need the others to rejoin.
Henry,
Yeah.
I think, is coming. Marty's coming back. Sorry, everybody. I just
Back.
submitted Marty now.
Thanks, David. And Marty. Good. Okay. Quorum is restored.
So I got in on my phone. They had a power outage. They're looking to see if they have a quorum.
Yes, quite. So Steve Hall was, I think, completing his comments about.
A lot of yellow and orange crossing across Cape Ann.
Sorry, I'm going to mute you. Steve Hall was completing his comments about protection of the trees, particularly the area called Cathedral Pines. And,
Yeah, if I might just, I didn't realize there was a power outage when I was summarizing.
Yes.
And it's just the two issues to be added to peer review. One, to make sure that when experts are being consulted with regard to hydrology, that the health of the trees in Cathedral Pines and all other natural resources around Shingle Place Hill are not impacted, won't die because of this project. They've got to survive in the long term. And this is quite a monumental project. So I'm really concerned about that. The other is light pollution with the same scale kind of issue. The scale of this project is huge. And the critters living around in the Wilderness Conservation Area and all around in the natural resources area that surround the property and are owned by multiple conservation organizations should be protected for their natural resources and the habitat for the little critters that live there. So it's those two issues I think are important that the appropriate scientists are consulted as part of these peer review firms.
Thank you. We get it. All right. I had posed the question whether the commission was ready to vote to recommend. I heard back several opinions that we probably need to go back to the well with these two vendors and maybe get some help contacting GZA. So formal yes or no from as opposed to silence. Is that did I capture the sense of the commission there?
You did, Steve, but with all that power outage downtime, I had one other thought that I want to suggest, which is this issue of adding, jurisdiction. I would prefer to see, what we feel like the expanded scope be, and I don't know if jurisdiction is the peer review, whether they have the qualifications or whether it's a different attorney that opines on that. But then if those items have to be redacted, so be it. But at least we hear what the answers are, even if someone argues that some of these items are not within our jurisdiction. If that makes sense.
It does. The good news is we can actually get some expertise directly from DEP on questions of jurisdiction and given delineations. So we're not as fumbling for the light switch in that area as we would be with hydrology.
Steve, I just have a suggestion.
Yes, George.
We're sort of meandering a bit. It's George Pucci from Town Council. Good to see you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I just wanted to bring some direction to you on this because we're kind of meandering a bit. What I would recommend is maybe list the questions, the additional issues to expand the scope of the engagement proposals. Put those, I assume Bethany has been taking notes about the additional issues noted by the commission. Bring those back to the peer reviewers, see if they want to amend their engagement proposals, and then bring them back to you for the next meeting. I would recommend also, I'd like to see them in advance of your next hearing. I didn't see the proposals before tonight. I would recommend too to bounce them off the applicant as well. Provide copies of the proposals to the applicant and their representatives so that they can be prepared with some cogent, comments in response to it. Hopefully there won't be any disagreement about the scope of the peer review. I would remind the commission it's totally in your province to select your peer reviewers and the scope. It has to be reasonable. It has to be issues within the scope of the jurisdiction of the application presented to you. The type of professionals that we're dealing with in this case, I doubt very much that they would make proposals that are, outside the bounds of the jurisdiction of the commission. So hopefully, the additional issues that you've raised tonight, you can propose that to the peer reviewers. They can get back to you with an amended scope. Hopefully there won't be any issue or objection from the applicant, and then you can get those reviews going sooner rather than later. The only other piece that I would mention is there's a difference between, addressing all the questions and comments that you may have about the project in terms of the scope of the peer review, as opposed to get the peer review underway, get the analysis coming to you. And then when you have further questions and comments, issues can be supplemented and reports can be supplemented. The applicant can weigh in, the peer reviewers can weigh in, any third parties that want to comment on this can come out of your process. So don't think that you have to address every potential question with regard to the application in terms of the scope of the peer review. A lot of these questions and comments can come out as your hearing gets underway substantively, when you get into more of the nitty-gritty of the application and the substantive information. So the long and the short of it is I would recommend we do our best to get the peer reviews underway, and then you can start with substantive questions and comments. And I'm available, obviously, during your process to opine on issues that are within your jurisdiction or not, and I'm happy to give you opinions on that. But at this point, we're not ready to even say that there's any objection in terms of the potential scope of the peer review engagement. So that would be my recommendation. Try to get those questions of the peer reviewers, get further clarity on that so that you can tee it up for your next hearing and get those reviews underway.
Yes, thank you, George. That's useful. And I apologize for the meandering and the power outage. But it sounds like this has actually been an informative discussion for the commission, and we are equipped to go back to these peer reviewers and maybe to nudge one or two others into proposing, which is what we will do, and report back to you on August 11th with copies of material to the applicants as before, and also to Attorney Pucci. Any other comments from the commission on this matter? Peer review. Okay. That'll be the scope of what we're trying to accomplish tonight, I think, but mindful of how many people have come in, I'd like to allocate 10 or 15 minutes maximum to comments from the public, if there are any. So we're not looking for lengthy.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna
orations.
mention, Steve, that for individuals, we're gonna limit those to about 2 minutes apiece.
Correct. And you'll be the timekeeper.
Timer in hand.
Thank you. So who would like to pose a question or make a comment? I'll do my best to see all of you here. Well, I am seeing only Attorney Hill, and I don't know if that's a new comment or whether that's a leftover from earlier. If it's new, please speak up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to briefly mention that I did submit last night a rather lengthy position statement to the commission about all the issues that we've talked about tonight. And I also included the pre-file testimony from the 3 experts that I mentioned who worked for the town on the Housing Appeals Committee matter. So you have that hopefully in your inbox. We would very much appreciate it if you could review that before the next meeting. And then that, I think, will help inform kind of the scope of where this commission is going to be heading in terms of reviewing the substantive issues. So I just want to mention that I did file that. Didn't expect you to read it before tonight, but hopefully that'll help the commission kind of formulate the process and the public hearing going forward.
Good, very useful.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, could I be requested a copy of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I can forward you that, Scott.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
any other supplemental things that come in during this hearing that were from any abutters or attorneys or any parties, if you could forward automatically to myself or Andrew from my office would be great.
Yeah, I will.
Will do. That's a good suggestion. I see no one else asking to be heard, so I appreciate all of your attendance and hope you will stay tuned for our progress at our next meeting, August 11th. So I will hear a motion to continue 0 School Street to the August 11th meeting.
So moved.
And a second. Thank you, David. All those in favor? Gordon, you're not voting. Jim?
Aye.
Arnold?
Aye.
Marty?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you, Scott and Carlton and Attorney Hill and Attorney Pucci and others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you. Is the next hearing scheduled?
August
August
11th.
11th.
August
Thank you.
11th, 6:30 p.m. For those of you who had any difficulties with the Zoom link, the official Zoom link is on the town website.
Yeah.
In the agenda center, or you can get it through our Conservation Commission webpage by clicking through to the meeting agenda.
Yes.
So we will close the public hearing at this point and move to other and old business. And I think the first item on our list here is a presentation from the Jefferson Apartment Group regarding their plans for construction in Gordon College Woods.
Yes.
Who's here from? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Lauren Jesnicki with the Jefferson Apartment Group team. Am I able to share my screen? Is that possible?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Okay, perfect. Let me know if you can see this. Good?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful.
Hold it.
So, as I mentioned, Lauren Jesnicki, I'm here with the Jefferson Apartment Group team. I'd also like to mention my colleagues Mark Geller and Chris Burchard, who are also on the line, as well as our civil engineer, Stacy Minahan with the Beals and Thomas Civil Engineering team. The goal of our presentation tonight is to keep it relatively brief. We had a prep call with Bethany just to talk through our presentation would be very high level, really introductory in a way. And then Stacy would like to talk through some of the logistics of an ANRAD filing that we're planning to make in the next few weeks. So with that, I'll walk through a few high level slides, as I'd mentioned. To introduce Jefferson Apartment Group as the applicant, they're a national developer of multifamily housing units. They've developed thousands of units, mostly on the East Coast, and have a very large presence in the greater Boston area. So team members include myself, Chris Burchard, who's also on the phone, a construction partner and an SVP, and Greg Lamb, who's the president and chief operating officer for JAG. So very experienced developer who delivers Class A high-end communities. Again, I mentioned a large presence in greater Boston with projects in Malden, Arlington, most recently in Woburn, a mix of housing, multifamily, townhouse, and sort of mid-rise. You'll see more examples of that here. So with that as the background, the proposal is in regards to a site just off of Pine Street, north of Route 128, that belongs to the Gordon College campus. This is a property that has been in discussion between Gordon College and the town of Manchester for many years now as an opportunity to put some of their large campus into use as housing. So the site is shown approximately in this location. We've spent the last several months really studying the site because there is a large extent of topography and wetlands, vernal pools, and so that required just a lot of field work, a lot of investigatory flagging and characterizing of the wetlands and the topography. So this is showing the current proposal, which is 3 buildings in 2 pads or parcels. The west parcel, as we call it, with buildings A and B, and the east parcel here off to the right. These buildings are intended to really be built into the topography, to be set back from the wetlands and built into the topography, really making use of the gradual and sometimes more steep slopes to minimize the amount of ledge and really be nestled into the hill and away from the buffer areas. So this just gives a high-level site plan. The west building contains 175 units. The east building contains 110 units. That translates to about 14 units per acre, which is generally consistent with the MBTA communities legislation that came out in the last couple of years as guidance from the state in terms of housing production in various communities. We're proposing 430 parking spaces and an amenity program that would include spaces like clubhouse, catering kitchen, fitness center, pool, etc. EV parking and bike parking. As I mentioned, we've spent a lot of time over the last several months, not only studying the physical site constraints, but also having a lot of different listening sessions with the various stakeholders in town. So an all-department meeting back in August of last year, but we've met with the planning department, DPW, engineering, Affordable Housing Trust, public safety, conservation staff. I mentioned we've had a couple meetings with Bethany. We did our first more public-facing presentation to the select board in May and just met with the Affordable Housing Trust last week. We've heard a lot of feedback that the scale of the project is quite large. Our original proposals last year were upwards of 300 units. We've scaled that back to some extent. We've been discussing sewer allocation constraints, as I mentioned, environmental and conservation impacts through very extensive wetland analysis. We will, of course, be doing more impact analysis as it relates to traffic and access and public safety. We heard that the design is really important, and so the architectural character of the project and the building should be very thoughtful. We've spent a lot of time on that. And we just more recently heard from the select board that town services are certainly something to be considered, and we're always part of our plan to be considered, but an area of focus certainly. So we've advanced a fiscal impact study that's currently underway. And we've heard a lot of potential community benefits. These are just some of them, the trail improvements and others. Part of the guidance from the select board is that all of the community benefits would be managed and coordinated through the town manager's office. So these are just some ideas, but again, more vetting to be done. One of the benefits would certainly be to add housing units to the town's subsidized housing inventory catalog, and so that would be a benefit certainly, and provide a lot of surplus over the 10% threshold. And I'll just do a very quick update on our sort of bigger schedule before I hand it over to Stacy for the ANRAD schedule. Our goal, having done all of this vetting and stakeholder outreach, is to put together a project eligibility letter over the next couple of months to go through the comp permit process in the fall and winter, and then advance into design development and construction documents next year, and to start construction early in 2028. So it's a longer, as all these projects are, it's a longer term process, but something that we're looking forward to beginning in earnest this fall. So with that, unless the commission has any questions about these slides specifically, I would turn it over to Stacy.
Any questions from the commission? Then we'll say thank you, Lauren, and go ahead, Stacy.
All right.
Thank you very much. So I'm Stacy Minahan. I'm a professional wetland scientist and principal with Beals and Thomas. And kind of our first step with the commission for this project is filing an ANRAD because, as Lauren noted, there are wetlands around the kind of perimeter exterior of the proposed development areas. So we've just recently been out to reflag and survey the site. We're currently processing that information to create our ANRAD plan. There's about 200 flags of BVW and IVW delineation that we've put in the field. And as you saw from the schedule that Lauren presented, looking to start in earnest this fall and also looking to keep things moving and be as efficient as possible. So we met with Bethany ahead of this meeting to find out some of the logistical information, which was very much appreciated, and talked about coming to the commission to preview the project very briefly, but then really nail down the schedule for the ANRAD. So we are, as Lauren mentioned, planning on submitting the ANRAD in short order as soon as we have all of the pieces together. We understand that the September 1st hearing is being rescheduled, I think because of a conflict in town. And I just wanted to see if that was the case, if the date was known and what the filing deadline would be for whatever that rescheduled meeting is, because I think that's the one we'd be trying to target.
Yes, because it is an election day, September 1st, and you can't have meetings on election day, and that is actually like the next thing on the agenda is to vote for.
I'll stay and listen then. And I guess this follow-up question to that is whichever way it goes, whether that affects the filing deadline, because I think the current filing deadline for if it were on September 1st was August 11th. So I'll stay on to listen to the outcome of that then, which is great. As mentioned, I think we're trying for this ANRAD to have it closed out in one hearing, but also recognize that, you know, it's a notable site and there are 200 flags. We understand from Bethany that the commission does typically like to do a site visit. And we also were wondering whether the commission anticipated having peer review. And if so, whether those were things that we could start to get scheduled and soliciting proposals for between now and your next August 11th meeting, just so that things could be sort of queued up so that we can hit the ground running once we submit the ANRAD.
Sounds like a question.
Yes.
And the answer is I don't know about peer review of your delineations. It kind of depends on what we see, how complicated they are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is that kind of determined after the commission does a site walk then, or after this ANRAD is submitted?
Well, it would typically be after the ANRAD was submitted and we had a more precise sense of how complex the delineations are. But in the meantime, we could rely on you, Bethany, to take a first hard look at these and tell us whether you think we're going to require an independent review of the delineations. A site walk is always valuable, but you know we're avid amateurs, not professional wetland scientists. So we don't come with our augers and our chroma tables and all that stuff.
Understood.
We leave that to you guys. I can't think of any reason why we wouldn't be able to have a site visit prior to your filing, although that's not our typical practice.
Or even post our filing if it can't be before, but sort of just getting the discussion going. I think the commission site walk, if it can be scheduled before the hearing that we're being heard at, that would be great, just so that there's less chance for outstanding information. And then the peer review discussion was the same, where if you were thinking peer review, if we could start having those proposals solicited so that it's lined up, so that then by that first hearing, hopefully the peer review has been completed.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts about that. One is that although we like to think that everyone on the commission has plenty of time to do a lot of homework, the sad fact is that a lot of the information that we process, we learned during the meetings. I'm speaking personally here. And the second thing is that part of our duty is to expose this information to the public. so that if we kind of front end load the commission site walk before we have an ANRAD in hand, or try to do get a peer review underway, we're kind of short circuiting the public's right to hear those matters come up and be debated. So if there's a way to juggle those, we would certainly take it, but they're concerns.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's valid. And just to clarify, I think for the commission site walk, like I said, doesn't necessarily need to be before we submit the ANRAD. It would be more, could it be scheduled, once we've submitted and are going to be placed on a hearing agenda, but just having it before that first hearing, as opposed to, coming to the first hearing and then scheduling a Concom site walk. For the peer review, similarly, because I think that you'd have trouble getting peer review quotes without our ANRAD having been submitted, because they wouldn't know what they're quoting. So similarly, once we submit the ANRAD, if the commission is so inclined to authorize Bethany at this meeting to solicit peer review proposals upon the submission of the ANRAD, so that can move forward. So certainly not looking to short circuit the public process. Understand that then at your August 11th meeting, after we've submitted the ANRAD, but before we have our hearing, the commission would be discussing the peer review proposals received and selecting one publicly.
I'm not sure how the rest of the commission would feel about this, and I'd like to find out, but another possibility is that at our next meeting, you give us an introductory talk, much like this one, but focused more specifically on what wetland resources you have identified and concern you, not the specific delineations, but a sense of how this project will fit into the wetland resources on that property.
So I don't know that we'll be prepared to go to that level of detail for the project design, because that's still very conceptual level. So I don't think we'll be able to say, for example, exactly how far apart how far away the project will be. So the ANRAD will be just a pure ANRAD delineation review. As I mentioned, there's a few isolated vegetated wetlands. There's a bordering vegetated wetland, and then there are certified vernal pools kind of in the back of the property.
Gotcha. Gordon, I see your hand is up.
Thanks, Steve. I guess my preference would be to see the application first, perhaps have a hearing, then schedule the site visit. We often ask the applicants if they're open to having the public attend on the site visit. I guess the applicant doesn't need to agree to that, but it would be nice to have that sort of time for the public to be notified if there is going to be a public site walk available.
Good point. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but in addition to the locating BVW, IVW, and some vernal pools, I guess the question is, how constraining are the resources in terms of any prospect of major site improvement and construction? And I appreciate you may not be in a position to tell us that tonight. Okay, so
do you want to take that, Lauren, or would you like me to address?
So I just to clarify the question, you're just asking how what is the extent of the wetland areas, and how limiting are they on the proposed building footprints?
Yeah. And as I said, you may be this may be getting out too far over your skis at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it is all very conceptual, and I think part of our goal of doing the ANRAD process first is to really confirm the location, to then dial in the design. As you can imagine, we don't want to dial in the design too much and then the line moves, etc. So as Stacey had said, it is still pretty conceptual, and so our goal would be to really get the commission support for the line, and then come back to really present the the more detailed design. We wanted to do the project, sort of intro here, because we'd been to the select board, and so there's already been some discussion, but understanding that we'd sort of like to focus back on the technical aspects of the ANRAD separately.
Okay, so we'll keep our focus on the delineation.
Yeah, yes,
and,
exactly. Thank you.
Wait for future designs of construction and driveways and whatnot.
Yep.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Bethany?
I know I'm not a commission member, but I do think with like Gordon's comment in mind that for like the public process, and because sidewalks usually review and look at the plan, the ANRAD plan, I feel like it's most kosher and appropriate for them to do a sidewalk after the first presentation meeting.
And Jim?
Yeah, so I don't even know what an ANRAD is. Let's start with that. And then when I do a site tour, I'd like to see not only the vernal pools staked out, but the parking lot and the buildings, and so if there's no plan yet, there's really nothing for me to conceptually get out of another tour around Gordon Lodge, which I do with my dog, but not with the idea of an apartment building. But we are not developers. We're not here to like say what is possible or what we would agree to. We're here to respond to what you propose in terms of how it affects the resource, as you know. So
yeah.
I think we're a little ahead of it here talking about a tour.
So yes, and I'm sorry, I fall into acronyms, so thank you for catching me on that. So an ANRAD is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, and it is a mechanism to have a wetland line confirmed by the commission. It's not required, so a lot of times you may have a notice of intent come before you, and it has the wetlands delineated as part of it, and as part of that notice of intent proposing work, you also review the wetland delineation. What we're doing here is separating that out so that we're submitting just, this is the site, these are the wetlands. Do you agree with where we are showing the wetlands?
Okay.
And we're doing that so that, as Lauren mentioned, we can really dial in the design and not spend design effort then to have a wetland line move during a future notice of intent. So the site walk is completely up to the commission. Most commissions I'm before or peer review for don't tend to do their own site walks for ANRADs because it is just a walk in the woods reviewing a wetland line, but some commissions like to. Either way is obviously fine. But certainly there would not be any proposed improvements staked out because we're nowhere close to having that designed.
And does the ANRAD point out changes in elevation and which way groundwater flows and all that sort of thing?
No, it'll just be the wetland lines. So the flags in the field.
When do we learn about which way the water flows?
During the notice of intent stage. Sorry,
Okay.
Bethany.
All right, thank you.
And Jim, it has been our practice. We've done 2 ANRADs recently, one for the research facility being built by Cell Signaling. And it was a very extensive ANRAD, although most of the project was well outside wetlands jurisdiction. And we did one in 2021 for Shingle Hill. And in each of those cases, most of us found it very useful to walk the delineation, or at least near the flagging, with Stacy's counterpart in those cases, to learn what are the resources it's our job to protect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments from the commission?
Just one.
Go ahead, David.
So Steve, excuse my obvious ignorance here, but would it make any difference if we were to do a site visit in the middle of this severe drought season? And is that going to affect the wetlands delineations to any appreciable amount? No.
What a great question.
This project?
Stacy or Bethany, professionals want to answer that?
Sure, I'm happy to give my 2 cents, and Bethany, you can jump in if you agree or disagree. It is a very good question. generally speaking, the drought will not affect a wetland delineation, especially in a wooded area like this. So wetlands are delineated on 2 to 3 parameters: plants, soils, and indicators of hydrology. So indicators of hydrology is where you might see an effect from a drought, because if you dig your hole, maybe there's not going to be standing water where in a non-drought there would be. But there's also a lot of non-water indicators of hydrology: oxidized rhizospheres, buttress tree roots, water-stained leaves, lots of things that can happen that are long-term effects from having inundation. And so just a granted long temporal drought that we're having won't change that. Similarly, the soils are still going to be hydric. So even if they're dry, you're still going to see them hydric. So, that does not impact our ability to delineate the wetlands. This property has been delineated, I think, at least 2 other times that I'm aware of before Beals and Thomas's delineation. Our delineation is a little bit higher, like larger wetlands, I would say, than the past delineations, but generally consistent with what's been done before. And the prior 2 delineations that I've seen also were very similar to each other. So the wetlands are, relatively straightforward and able to be delineated at this time of year, but it is a great question.
I can put my 2 cents in. For a drought, you can't argue against a perennial stream right now. That is off limits with the Wetlands Protection Act due to the drought, because during a drought you can't prove if it's actually not a perennial stream or not. But is there a stream on the property? I thought
There's not a stream within the delineation area, within the development area. So that's not a finding that we're looking to make, is perennial versus intermittent.
Okay.
Yeah. And so just to circle back, and I hear what the commission is saying, but would be remiss if I did not ask one more time or see if there was some creative way to do it. Because this is just for the wetland delineation, and understanding that it still may go to hearings, what I was hoping to avoid is that we submit the ANRAD. That's not going to put us on until whatever your September 1st hearing is rescheduled to. So then if you wait until that night to even think about soliciting peer reviews, then you have to wait to get the peer review. Then the peer reviewer has to then you're at another hearing to vote for the peer review. And then the peer reviewer has to do the peer review. And so it really extends the schedule. So if the commission would at all be amenable to, we submit the ANRAD, but authorizing Bethany after we submit the ANRAD to solicit the peer review scope, so that at your August 11th meeting, you could pick the peer reviewer. By then we will have submitted the ANRAD. We will be on your September 1st agenda, and that would just allow the peer review to get going.
Again, it depends on the complexity of the delineation, in my mind anyway. It's not automatic that we would require a peer review or request one.
Mm-hmm.
So, best case for you is that I guess the ANRAD looks sufficiently straightforward. The delineations look straightforward enough to Bethany that she comes to us and says, I think, I can handle this and bring you enough information without an independent review.
Okay, that's fair.
But that we'll have to wait and see.
That review by Bethany doesn't happen. When does that happen?
Right when I receive the materials.
As soon as you submit, by the filing deadline.
Okay. So would it be possible then, if it will depend on if Bethany reviews it and does not feels that, and she feels that peer review is warranted, could the commission authorize her to solicit peer reviews so that you would still have them for your August 11th or worst case September 1st hearing? And I'm not pushing for peer review. If Bethany looks at it and says, I've got it, we'd be very happy with that outcome, but just trying to plan contingency.
Yeah. I think it's within our capability to organize the search for peer reviewers if we feel it's necessary before we have a public hearing. Most of that search would be done by Bethany in consultation with the co-chairs.
Yeah, that would be very much appreciated if it's something that the commission as a whole is amenable to.
Yes. All right. Anything else, Stacy? Lauren?
No, that was what I had. Like I said, I will stay on to hear when this September 1st meeting will be rescheduled, but Other
Thank
than
you.
that, I'm good.
No, this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yes, I
coming.
appreciate the time.
Again,
Thank
I want to respect the turnout of neighbors and concerned individuals. But we're not yet talking about wetland jurisdiction or any specific plans. So I guess I'm willing to have a 5 or 10 minute period of public comment, but only if the comment is directed to the process questions we have in front of us, which is how do we get from here to an ANRAD? Does it require a peer review? All of these things that we think we've dealt with here. But as to the substance of building in the woods, you know, that for that stuff, I'd ask people to hold on to your opinions until we have much more specific proposals and trade-offs involving the wetlands. Sound fair? So is there anyone who'd like to pose a question or make a comment about the process, this early stage we're in with Jefferson Apartment Group?
Lorraine Iavani here, 28 Pine Street. I would like to make a comment with regard to the process, the initial process,
Yes.
If I may, Steve.
Please go ahead, Lorraine.
Okay, thank you. I did submit a written document. I would draw our commission's attention to Ms. Bethel's very significant report of findings for that particular locus. I would ask my commission to ensure that our watershed is absolutely protected and that any and all due diligence, and that includes any peer review that needs to be done, is absolutely done. This is probably one of the most significant locuses with regard to our drinking water supply. And quite frankly, I'm a little taken aback by the push here by JAG. I understand they have a time frame and, that's how they get paid. However, I live here and this is a major area concerning not only the watershed, but also a natural water filtration system that affects what we drink. So I did hear, and I hope I heard this correctly, and it's about 435 parking spaces. Is that what I heard? Asphalted. I expect the same due diligence on this project as we've done with SLV. And if that means we slow it down and we do the due diligence and the deliberation, then I think that's appropriate. And that's, Steve, what I hear you saying. Maybe I'm being a little more direct here as a resident and taxpayer, but I appreciate what you're thinking about and how you're deliberating and really paying attention. So thank you very much. But we are early on in the process, but make no mistake here. This
Thanks,
is
Lorraine.
a very important area. Thank
wrap
you very
up
much.
there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lorraine. I see a
Thank
hand
you.
from Sarah's iPhone. Unmute and identify yourself, please.
Hi, thank you so much. Sarah Pierce. I live at 9 Friend Street in Manchester, and I will try to stay on topic and not go into detail with the environmental pieces here. But I would like to ask, early on in the presentation by the firm, the woman who was speaking cited that most of their developments have been done in cities such as Malden and Arlington. I want to know how they think these are suitable sites for such developments that have landed in cities, not in untouched natural woodlands. It was also mentioned that these mammoth developments not suited for the site or in general will improve the existing trails. The only way you can improve the trails would be to not construct your development. Natural wooded trails are exactly that. Naturally beautiful, untouched, and will not be helped or improved by putting concrete and covering watersheds and potentially threatening our drinking water in any way. Prior to this hearing was yet another inappropriate application that I just need to bring to the total number of units. Both Zero School Street, Shingle Place Hill, and Gordon Wood developments would be extremely environmentally detrimental just by location default. These two developments will total 411 units, both being built in inappropriate locations. It's already been shown through
Sarah, I'm
years.
going to have to ask you to stop.
Okay,
You're not-
thank you very
you're not
much
tou-
for
you're
taking
not
my
touching on
comment.
Wetlands issues, but I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for taking my comments.
Let's take one more. I see George Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will have this oriented toward process, as you asked.
Just give us your address or affiliation.
Yes, George Davis, Woodholm Road, 23 Woodholm Road. So I think most everyone on this call, maybe everyone knows how much the area around this proposed development is accessed, used by the public. And obviously there's been a considerable amount of surveying work and all being done there. But I don't actually know what the sort of extent of the land is that the developer is looking to sort of have the use of. And I'm wondering if a survey plan has been provided to the commission, and if it has, is that also available for public viewing?
Not as yet, as far as I know. Bethany, is that correct?
I have received nothing, but once I do, if you email me, my email's on the town's website, I'll be sure to forward that to anyone who asks.
Thank you.
Is there a planned time when that would be provided to the commission?
It seems like before the September meeting.
Yeah, I would say in the next 2 weeks. Stacy?
I would say whatever deadline ends up being the deadline for that rescheduled September 1st meeting, that's the submission that we'll be targeting.
Thank you.
Depends on if that September 1st is pulled forward or pushed out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. And we're off and running on, we'll be awaiting an ANRAD application, and we'll go from there as we've described it. The next item, I think it makes sense to talk about rescheduling September 1st.
Yes, it's an election day.
Yeah, and Labor Day is Monday, September 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose the basic option is to move it to Tuesday the 8th, or to switch it around during that week. My preference would be to push it forward a week. How do others on the commission feel?
August 25th.
I agree. I may not be in town.
You mean, Steve, back into August?
I'm thinking of September 8. I guess the option is September 25.
Yeah, I'm in favor of September 8th, the Tuesday after
Labor Day.
Labor Day should be okay. It's good with me anyway.
Okay. Others on the commission?
I agree with you, Henry. September 8th works for me.
Works for me.
Not seeing any vigorous dissent going on.
That works for me. Yeah.
Works.
All right, I'll move that we reschedule our September 1st meeting to September 8th, 2026.
Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor? David?
Aye.
Arnold?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Marty?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
So I just want to tell
Unanimous. We've got
Stacy,
unanimous.
I just want to tell Stacy that that the deadline would be 3 weeks from September 8th. So the latest that I need to receive items by is August 18th by noon.
Okay.
Thank you.
August 18, noon time. Excellent. The other things on our new and old business list we may or may not have to do here is the recalculation of impact area for the Lincoln Street well. Did we dispose of that at our last meeting?
No, there's someone on the call, Anne, I believe, who's going to talk about that.
Okay,
Yes. Thanks, Bethany.
welcome in.
Thank you. My name is Anne Malenfant. I'm the project manager from CDM Smith, who is designer for the treatment plant going in at Lincoln Street well. I have a brief presentation that I'll share just to just give me a minute, context to this ask. I'll call on Bethany. Can you see my screen?
No,
No,
not
I gotta
yet.
hit share. Sorry. Zoom is not what I
It's
typically.
loading.
Okay.
Bingo.
Yes.
We see it.
Okay, thank you. So this is an administrative approval request. So just project overview. As many of you probably know, Lincoln Street Well is one of two water supplies for the town. We're in the process of upgrades to the existing chemical treatment that is at that well to address PFAS regulations, both from Massachusetts and at the federal level. This new facility will replace the existing well pump house that is there and add treatment for iron and manganese, and then also granular activated carbon for absorption of the PFAS, and then some minor chemical feed upgrades. We have already gone through the NOI process for this. We had an order of condition issued from the commission on January 20th. The DEP file is there. And the project went out to bid in March, and we have bids in hand. We're just going through the funding process with Mass DEP for state revolving fund funding. But I'm here today just to ask for administrative approval of a reduction in the impact area. This is the existing conditions plan. I won't dwell on this too long. It just shows the existing buildings that are there. This is the chemical feed building. This is the pump house that will be replaced, and the various kind of environmental setbacks on this. This is one of the figures from the NOI submittal, minus the clouding over here, that did show the permanent impacts to the site. The changes in permanent impacts is already a paved access road here and the existing building, but this is the change to permanent impacts. What we're looking or asking to be removed is this area here, which is an existing pollinator garden that's become very overgrown. We're just removing and replacing that as part of the project. So it's not being altered. We're just removing and replacing the pollinator garden. And what this is our proposed revised. This looks a little different because the prior figure only showed permanent impacts, whereas for the NOI and the order conditions, we did talk about both permanent and temporary impacts and alterations to the site, which I'll show a summary of what those numbers are versus what we're asking for here as far as a reduction. But this does represent the overall analysis of the alterations to the site with alteration within the riverfront area and alteration within the BLSF. So kind of the summary table here, this was the original, what was in the NOI, what was approved on the order of conditions in the riverfront area and in the bordering land subject to flooding. We're asking for a reduction, and this isn't a revision to the order of conditions. It's simply an administrative approval just to have it on record of that reduced area. And that is, reducing it by about 3,000 square feet on the riverfront area, and about 250 feet on the bordering land subject to flooding.
Have
The
those
state
reversed.
in the table.
Oh, sorry, no. All right, you're
Okay.
right.
So again, it's the pollinator garden. Part of this is that we're not altering that space. We're not changing the grading. It's just removing the pollinator garden that's overgrown there and replacing it with reseeding it with a pollinator garden mix again. Again, no other changes to the information that was provided in the order, the notice of intent, and that was approved on the order of conditions. Is just looking for an administrative approval on this reduction of altered area. And that is the end of my presentation.
Got it. Can you remind us why this is necessary?
Why the project is necessary?
No, why the alteration?
Yep. So the
area delineations.
So I'll go back to the figure. So it might be a little easier to see in here without all the red on it. So this building here is necessary to house that new equipment. So I talked about we're needing to add equipment to remove iron and manganese from the water, and then another more
Sorry to
equipment.
interrupt, Ann. It's a narrow question. Why are you before us tonight? Why do you need to change the definition of impact area impacted?
Okay, thank you. We're asking just to have it officially on the record. In the state revolving fund application, we do need to state on the record all the environmental impacts, and we want to make sure that we have everything appropriately documented. Any changes, some of this came about from the time that we submitted the NOI. That was at about 90% design. We weren't at final design, and then we did wrap up the final design. And so it's kind of a modification from that time to where we are now, and wanting to have everything adequately on the record for the state revolving fund.
Anybody else have a question or
I do.
Comment for Ann?
So just to clarify that, Ann, this is not being done to meet any minimum or maximum in order to obtain funding.
No maximum. I mean, it's really just to have everything adequate on the applications.
Okay, thank you.
Marty?
It sounds like the amendment is mostly around the redoing the pollinator garden. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
And I can't. It strikes me as you need to remove the pollinator garden for some element of this building, and you will replace it. But it is a matter of construction convenience or something to remove the pollinator garden. And perhaps there's some advantage because it's overgrown, but the purpose is because it's inconvenient to have that growth there when you're doing the building. Is that the answer?
Well, you can see there's mostly no building going in that area. The building is here, but there is a gate that will be constructed for security for the site. This is the base of the gate. It's a retracting gate. It will go in that space. And so, I mean, it is part of the overall project to provide the pollinator garden. Obviously, is a benefit to this area. It's overgrown. I think there's a lot of weeds in there that I understand. And so, yes, that some of this area will be needed for construction purposes, but the majority is going to be grubbed and reseeded as part of the project, just for the site. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand why you're bothering to do that. An overgrown pollinator garden is still, and there's an abundance of plants there, and so I mean it's maybe an artificial situation to start with, but I'm just surprised that you have to do that.
Yeah, it was part of the design request of the town to kind of refresh that portion of
Okay.
it.
Okay, so it's an aesthetic element. Okay.
Anybody else? So, Bethany, help me out here. This is obviously not an amendment to an order of conditions. It's an administrative approval, which I
They're
assume
seeking
requires
like
a
an
vote.
administrative approval letter. Yes,
And-
anything that like you authorize like that should require a vote just to make it clean, I think.
Okay, and will this administrative approval letter go on to the deed as the order of conditions does?
Yes.
Okay, then I am fine with it. How about others?
Yep, looks fine.
I'm fine.
Let's hear a motion to issue an administrative approval letter as per the request from DPW and CDM Smith.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Yeah. All those in favor? Gordon?
Aye.
Arnold?
Aye.
Marty?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
And I am an aye too. It's unanimous. Thank you, Ann.
Yes, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for staying through all the rest of this meeting for this.
Yes. Terribly well informed about things you don't need to know. Next item is dues to the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners. What's the details on that, Bethany?
It is, they never sent me an invoice. So I added that before I got like the actual paper invoice. So I think it needs to be postponed to August to actually get the invoice slip.
Okay, as long as we don't lose any important rights and privileges.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, they have like a grace period to get that in. So it'll be okay.
Good. There are no other specific items. Is there any other item?
Steve, did you want to do minutes this go around?
I definitely do want to do minutes. We
Okay.
have minutes for June 30. Good catch, Gordon. Any additions or corrections to June 30 minutes?
I had two. Again, a misgendering, this time of Attorney Medea in the second sentence of that paragraph.
Okay.
And then at the top of the second page, there were some comments attributed to Arnold that I think were from me regarding the height of the septic system on the Boardman Ave project.
Anybody else?
Unless you remember different, Arnold, but I think it was me. That was all I got.
All right, so I'll move we accept the minutes of June 30, 26 as amended. Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor indicate by wagging your hand. Well, I'm going to call that acclamation. Which brings us to the most important vote we need to take tonight. Henry?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
David? Well done. Second, and any objection? All right, good work.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you guys.
August
Bye.
11th is our next date.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
Steve.
everybody.